Are we started? Have we started? We're going to start with a song from Joe. Yesterday, oh my
That's how it
troubles
goes, right?
seem so... It's tuned very low.
Yes.
Most of my guitars here, you have to sing about a major third lower than you're used to.
Wow, this is really low. What's the gauge on here?
Those are probably what I usually use, which is like the Dethklok gauge, which is 13 to 56. So it's got that wound G. So you have to do a lot of yanking down, and your fingers start looking like they've been through a cheese grater.
This is spreading out.
Yeah, that one's probably... Some of these guitars, I haven't played this one that much. It's out in the open, but that one's probably got a little too low, action-wise.
We're live.
Oh.
Are we live? We're live.
Yeah, we have 224 people and it's growing.
Wow. Look at that.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
This is Joe Satriani.
I'm basically just scratching all of Brendon's guitars right now.
He's going through and just dinging every one of my guitars.
Oops. You scratch it, you buy it.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm going to make a lot of money today. That's all I know. I'm Brendon Small. How do you do? Welcome to my studio. This is known as the Danger Zone. A lot of records, heavy records have been made in this tiny little room.
It's actually huge. You can't see behind the cameras, but it goes back about 300 yards.
If you go past the hot tub and the billiards room, then you can get into the patch bay. That's how I plug in all my stuff.
You swim.
Yeah. But we're surrounded by guitars and pedals and amps, some of Joe's stuff. One of these right here. This is a cool one.
Purple dog bone. Just
purple dog bone.
I don't know
for
what
my
Brendon
dog.
uses that for.
I have an endorsement deal with some of the Purple Dog Bone Company. This is one of yours.
That's right.
This is a very cool one. And the cool thing about this is a gift from you, which is pretty amazing. And the thing that you said when you handed it to me, you said, "Look, this may change the way you play guitar because there's a Sustainiac pickup in here."
Yeah.
And you gave me a warning, pretty much. You said, beware, you may never go back to magnetic pickups again. And I took that warning very seriously because this thing is so much fun to play. When you turn it on, you've got these different little selectors that do all kinds of cool stuff. But it's so much fun to play that I now keep this in an area where it's a special occasion guitar. Or if I do a good job or if I do enough work, I get to play this guitar. But if I do it all the time, I will never go back to my magnetic pickup. Gibson's back there. But this is one of the coolest things, and what a cool gift. And it's the number 3.
It is number 3. Yeah.
Which one? Which tour?
Well, it would have been that first tour we did where we had more than the prototype, so that would have been unstoppable.
That is amazing. Yeah. The money I'm going to get for this on eBay is amazing.
All you have to do is kill me, and that thing will be worth lots of money.
Guys, we're live on Periscope. Anything could happen.
So if you want to, in your chat at any time, do a call out to fans to inspire them to chime in, then go ahead and do that.
We've been instructed just now, I don't know if you can hear off camera, but to say hello to the fans that are watching Joe and
Brendon
and me. And if you guys have any questions later on as we go through, maybe we can answer some questions for you guys about guitar, comedy, animation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be here to answer those questions, or to or in the meantime, we'll just be filibustering until our window eclipses.
Maybe we could start by having everyone shout out where they are geographically.
Here's a good question. Who is the farthest away from where we are? Right now, we are in Los Angeles, California, in an undisclosed
Michigan,
bunker.
Virginia, Argentina, Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Los Angeles, Atlanta. United Kingdom, Illinois, Madrid, Melbourne, Oakland, Billings, Montana, Cambridge, UK, South Carolina, Texas.
Lots of people.
Australia.
Finland. Okay. Hello.
Right.
Hello, Helsinki. How do you do? Hello, Illinois.
Italy.
Where were you born originally? You're an East Coaster.
Yes,
right?
Born in New York on Long Island, Glen Cove Hospital, for those people who
great hospital.
like to know what hospital.
I used to practice there. Yeah, yeah. I delivered a few children. I was just going through tour, and I just heard somebody crying, and I thought, I'm going to deliver a couple babies. And
Renaissance man.
Yeah, I do what I can. So you were born there, and how long did you live on the East Coast?
I grew up in a little part of Westbury that was part of the Carr Place School District, which is even smaller town right in the middle of Nassau County. And I lasted till about, on and off till about 19.
Okay.
Then headed out to Berkeley, California.
On your own?
My older sisters, had actually been living there for a couple of years, and they thought it was a cool and crazy place. And so they convinced me to come out and hang out for a while, which I did, and I did actually like it. It was so different from the island that I just took to it. Sort of a place where you figure you can reinvent yourself. So
absolutely, that's an important time to do that, because I did the exact same thing opposite from the West Coast to the East Coast. But by then you were knee deep in guitar, and you had already cultivated a love affair with the instrument. I guess my question is, and I think we all have an understanding of how this works. I'm sorry, is my mic working? I'm afraid I may have pulled it. But can everybody hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. My question is, I think I remember just seeing a guitar and being just the look of it and seeing somebody holding it and making sounds come out of it. And I remember that being something that I thought was the most amazing thing in the world. Yeah. It was before I even got to touch one. I thought they were things not for regular people. They were for immortal people. And I just knew I was attracted to it. And do you remember that feeling first?
Absolutely. It started, however, with drums. I mean, that was the thing.
Really?
It was, I wanted to be Charlie Watts, Ringo Starr, Dino Danelli, remember that name? He played with the Rascals. They were a local band that
I don't know.
It gained national success. I just thought maybe it's because they made the most amount of noise.
Sure.
And I was the youngest of 5 kids, so I just thought that was the ticket,
Right.
Make the biggest racket. And
were you able to get your hands on a drum kit?
Eventually, yeah. I started with a pad and then a coffee can and a pad, and every year my parents would say, okay.
They'd finish another coffee can and you'd get another part of your drum kit.
I had the greatest
very
collection
slow
of,
coffee drinkers. Yeah.
I preferred chock full of nuts cans myself, but I
It's
slowly built a kit. I think it was a combination of Gresham, Ludwig, used things.
Sure.
But after about 3.5 years, I realized I was going to pretty much suck. And by then I was getting into more and more guitar-oriented music that my older siblings were into, which included Hendrix and then eventually Zeppelin and Cream and all that great stuff. So.
And what year was that when that light turned on? When you thought, oh, this is modern music that's speaking to me, first of all, and I want to wrap my hands around a guitar and try to be able to play it?
Oh, well, it's definitely 70. It was like it was probably a force building inside of me. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but the catalyst, unfortunately, was Hendrix dying. And then I just thought, I know exactly what I'm going to do. Forget about the drums. I'm going to become a guitar player.
Right. And how old were you at that time?
14.
That, to me, that age keeps coming back. I think that's the most crucial age for a kid to start sculpting out his personality through music mostly. And luckily, if you have a friend down the street or someone who has access to a guitar or knows how to play a couple chords on a guitar, your life will change because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And fantasies start going on. I remember actually air guitaring in front of my mirror with my first guitar and listening to music and really embarrassing myself. Luckily no one was there, but I took these fantasies very, very seriously.
Now, how old was that? How old were you when that?
This was yesterday.
This was yesterday.
Yeah. No,
we have footage, I think.
I filmed myself. It's on a different Periscope. It's on an adult Periscope. But I remember I was lucky enough to have met a friend when I was 13, 14 who was already playing guitar. And I think you met him, my buddy Renzo. He was in San Francisco and did that comedy show a couple weeks ago. But he had been studying guitar for about 1.5 years, which is like dog years. That's like he could do anything on guitar. And he said we rode the bus together, and he had Metallica patches on and Slayer and all kinds of stuff. But in one afternoon, he pretty much walked me through, because my sister wasn't listening to cool music. She was listening to Madonna and stuff. And my buddy Renzo pretty much introduced me from everybody from Metallica, King Diamond, Jethro Tull, Led Zeppelin, and I'm trying to think anybody else that had it. He had a really eclectic taste, and he had a really great record collection too. And he was 1.5 years older than me. He was 15 and I was 14. He was 15 and a half. And
big difference.
It's a huge difference. But that, and he showed me Iron Man, how to play power chords. Cool. I hadn't even heard the song yet, but I was playing the song. And like just a blues shuffle, without changing keys, just stay on the E, kind of a thing. And that, to me, I went home and my brain was exploding because I realized I was actually playing music that day for the first time ever.
That's so cool.
That's an important part. So that, Guns N' Roses, all that kind of stuff.
And this is Illinois?
No, this is, so I was born in Illinois, and then my whole family moved to Salinas, California, Central California. And just a landscape of lettuce fields and fertilizer, and that's the smell in the air. And so I was going to hopefully get out of there as soon as I possibly could, or develop a sense of humor, and hopefully do both, and then probably try to work this guitar thing out along the way. But yeah, a lot of long hours, no license, sitting in faraway patches in this open kind of area.
I think it's it's an important period when you get introduced to music. You find the instrument that fits with your body, and you have this desire. Maybe it's mixed with anger or frustration of where you're at or where you find yourself. Yeah. And that, as you said, 14 years old, it's the perfect time. Well, your body is focused. Your mind wants to just break out and do something new. And then you learn the riff to Iron Man.
Yeah, I know. And then an explosion happens, and the clouds part, and all kinds of stuff. I remember we would make a big trip to San Jose, to the Guitar Center in San Jose, and that would be a big deal because one of our parents would have to drive us about an hour and a half away. Again, and we'd sit there, and they'd drop us off, and they'd have their own shopping to do. So we'd pretty much bother people at a Guitar Center, be stranded there, me and my buddy Renzo, for about 5-6 hours.
Not buying, right?
What's that?
Not buying anything.
Not buying, just asking a lot of questions. May I see that one now? And someone has to, they'd look at me for a long time, and then they'd go grab a thing and grab a guitar off the thing. And they're like, you're not buying anything. Like, maybe I am, maybe I'm not. You don't know anything, right? Maybe my father's a rich man who can afford things. But we'd sit there, and I remember at some point, it was like a Sunday or something, and there was a crowd gathering around one guy, and this to me was an important part too, playing through like some Jackson and into some like a crate amp or something, whatever they were selling, and he was playing Always With Me, Always With You.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, because my buddy had bought me your record, and that was a really big record for me because it was so creatively evocative, Surfing with the Alien. And every single song to me was a story, and every single song, the title made so much sense with what the song sounded like, and there was so much imagery inside of that. And to me, that was the most creative music, and such great melodies and such cool playing and sounds that I haven't heard made on a guitar before. But I remember I saw a guy probably about my age now, humped over a guitar, playing the melody, and like everyone was like, oh, he knows this song. He can play it. And it was a really big deal, and Renzo and I kind of wandered over, and I was just trying to remember what his fingers were doing, and he got to the tapping part, and I'm like, whoa, everyone shut up. Because I wanted to learn how to play that thing. Anyway, it was really cool to see a regular guy being able to play music that I thought was impossible, and that was around that same age as well. So that was an inspiration to realize that mortals can play this stuff. And then I realized very quickly that if you put enough time in, you will see you'll hear and feel results in the instrument.
So what did you practice? Like, did you scales? Did you get books? And
I got books. I was lucky enough to have I had 2 different guitar teachers in Salinas, California. One of them was a guy named Dennis Murphy, who is a bass player who was teaching us guitar, but he would still show us stuff. And then John Sherry, who's still around, I think, that area too, who's a guitar teacher, who was interested in teaching me some theory. So Renzo and I kind of made a pact. We thought, we should learn this theory stuff as in addition to these power chords and these pentatonic scales, we should learn why these other scales are working. So we started learning about modes, and we started learning about chord theory. And I started figuring out what 13th chords were, and I started learning how to do kind of a walking bass and jazz chords that I didn't know how to. So we were trying to learn the intellectual side of music while we were trying to shred and work on sweep arpeggios and whatever it was. I had like Paul Gilbert instructional videos too.
Perfect.
Which was really great because he isolates how a pick and these two hands function together, which would end up being the story of these two hands working together. Like, hey guys, get along. And so I was doing a lot of that stuff. In any instructional video, one of us would save up or pitch in. Like, there were a few other guitarists, and we'd sit at each other's house with our guitars and go, let's rewind that again and try to figure out how whatever Michelangelo is doing or whatever. But all that stuff to us was the most exciting stuff in the world.
That's cool.
You know? And now there's YouTube, so you can get that stuff anywhere. But those were expensive back in the day. They were like $60 for like a Frank Gambale. And or we would just shake our heads and put our guitars down. This is not going to happen.
I know they can be very discouraging because a lot of technique is based on the quirkiness of how every guitar player has a different kind of anatomy. They you know, things just happen easily to one person, and the other person finds it awkward. So it can be frustrating if you're watching somebody like Gambale just effortlessly do all this.
Ooh, just with it, he's like playing with a Ritz cracker. It's just so light. It doesn't, you know, it's and then he's got no choice, and he's got a harmonic understanding of the instrument on top of that. I wonder for you, and I think people probably ask this all the time because people do put so much emphasis on how you're getting the notes, the sound, and the technique. When did you feel like your guitar playing was starting to feel like it would become what it would eventually show up to your first couple records as being?
I don't think that happened until I'd moved out from New York to Berkeley, and I spent a lot of time seeing how many hours I could practice in a day. Let's say if I work up to like 12 hours a day, and I only did that for about 2 months. So because it monopolizes your entire existence if you're going to play for that many hours. So you can't really do anything with anybody.
You cannot be a social person.
Right. You can't have a job or do anything. So, but I had been on tour with this disco band leading up to that period, and I'd reached a complete moment of frustration, and I thought, I'm going to go to California, I'm going to woodshed, I'm going to see what happens. And I think at the end of that, I saw maybe, just maybe, like you glimpse a star, or you're looking in the night sky and you think, is that a star or my eyes playing tricks on me? But it was kind of like that. Yeah. And I kind of held on to that, but then I had to get busy, you know, teaching and being in a band that was like professional, which was the Squares. Yeah. That went nowhere, but we were very professional at it.
But you put yourself in a situation where you're playing out and you're putting yourself on the spot, which is another important part about developing technique, and then on top of technique, improvisational skills and being able to wrap your mind around how to make this thing that you think sounds good in your bedroom sound good for other people. That's a whole learning curve to that stuff. But it's funny. I think technique is funny for a professional guitarist like yourself. It almost seems
Thank you.
I finally acknowledge that you're
you
a
professional.
You
heard it. It's got to be true.
It's got to be true now. But I think it's like a currency that you kind of maybe don't think about as much now. It's kind of there. Mm-hmm. Almost like, you know, if you're spending your whole life going, I don't have enough money, then all of a sudden you make a lot of money and you don't care about money anymore. That's what I think chops are.
Yeah, I
kind of the same
so.
thing in some way, where you're like, maybe it's more about, I realized in the first record I did, the first Dethklok record, whatever I had been working on up until that point, I was pretty much flushing it all down the Dethklok toilet, and I ran out of licks by the halfway point of my record. And I thought, okay, I'm out of licks. I've done every trick that I've known, from Paul Gilbert to you to whoever else I was listening to, Eddie Van Halen to whatever, and now I got to start thinking about melodies. And that's where I thought, that's the big lesson I wish I had learned even before that record, is that you're going to run out of licks. All you got are melodies, and all you got are your ears. I don't know.
And your competition, so to speak, which are also in a way your comrades, they will learn whatever it is that is cool. So if you invent something, pioneer something mechanical, especially today, everyone will know it in 24 hours, and most people will probably be able to do it better, unless you're a total freak of nature. But
I mean, have you ever sat down and spent some time on YouTube just looking at people?
Of course.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. It's crazy
how good these people are.
Yeah.
There's a new thing that goes on as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's all right.
But where they're just amazing guitar players, and I'm like, okay, cool. Where's the record? And they're like, no. No one said there was going to be a record. And I thought, you know what? You're right. I just want to watch you play guitar like a maniac on these like little clips on Instagram or whatever it is. Just watch a guy just do it. It's almost like watching someone like lift an amazing amount of weight.
That's
like
right.
I don't need that to be in the context of a story. I'm just watching that happen right now, and that is an amazing thing.
Have you seen the clip of there's a young guy from Tehran who sits down in his living room with an acoustic guitar and a metronome, and he plays so fast your brain says that's impossible.
Is it like one of the Flight of the Bumblebee kind of things where they keep putting the?
It's that and more, and it just and of course he starts at a speed that is beyond me anyway,
right,
and then he just proceeds into an area where my ears are failing. Like I'm not even sure it's.
I can't tell if it's clean or not, and also I can't tell if that's a pick anymore. I can't tell what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But like you said, it'd be great if there was a record.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what the guy would write.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but that's not the way the world works right now, I think.
He could record Surfing with the Alien, except he'd get it in like 11 minutes, the whole album.
He would shorten your music listening experience. You don't have to spend as much time. The problem I think we all have with music is it takes too long to listen to.
I think we used
a shorter amount of time.
We used 2 reels of tape.
Yeah.
To record that album. I could have done with maybe a quarter of a reel.
You could have used less tape.
Save money.
You don't have to put as much of like an album, less vinyl. You put out like a little 78.
Everything.
You get 32 songs on one side.
Everything shrinks
32 songs on the other side. Slow it down later on.
Yeah.
Maybe listen to it. Yeah. That's a phenomenon that I'm noticing. But amazing, amazing players. Guys who I go online and I go buy lessons and stuff like that to this day, just to see if just get outside of my head. Obviously, I know what I'm going to do.
Right.
How can I get my hands moving in a different way? Do you ever find yourself doing anything like that?
Yeah. With anything to do with finger picking is something I've always thought I needed to see it in front of me. I've bought some of the printed literature, over the last couple of decades, and it just doesn't stick. But if I look at a Tommy Emmanuel live DVD, besides being totally like, oh my God, like I'll never get there. But if I see somebody do it, somehow it makes more sense because it's 2 things that are really getting together with all the digits. Because with picking, it's mainly a wrist kind of a.
It is, and I've been trying to mess around with that stuff too, where I get hold on to the pick and try to get getting these 2 fingers for me to go back, right now, me trying to move this is embarrassing, trying to move them back and forth like this and keep everything else like that. I can barely do it. I'm I feel like I'm like a POW trying to I don't know, you guys figure out the rest of that sentence for me. But it's like playing guitar left-handed. Have you ever put your guitar in and you go this is not very good guitar playing? And that's how I am when I try to do that stuff. I see how it works, and I sit there with a metronome and try to slow it down and try to re-angle my hand and try to do all those little. I feel like guitar, we're working in millimeters.
Yeah.
We're working in the smallest fraction of space to move this pick or to get the right angle of your nail or the skin and your nail onto those strings. Those little tiny things are that makes every difference in the world.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Tells the story. Helps sell a melody. Because it completes the phrasing. If the tone is just perfect for that one note or that one series of notes. So
you had good tone. I think your whole career. I don't think you've ever had an off record. I think it all got on the record, sounding really great.
Thank you. You're being very kind.
Yeah.
I don't know how we do it. I mean, we're here in your studio.
Yes.
And you know what it's like. Sometimes you work 6-7 hours and then you go, what am I doing? And you got to go outside.
Yeah.
Go do something totally different. Come back in and.
Yeah.
And you say, is that the right tone for this song? And
But you've got a good philosophy. I mean, you helped me out a long time ago when I was doing the second Dethklok record. You just asked me a question. I think we were maybe at one of those guitar player events or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I was in post-production and I was doing overdubs for this record. And you said, so what are you doing to record? And I had just moved to this place. And I said, I don't have my studio up and running. I don't really have any. I can't really record loud. And I'm still using this pod. And you said, well, that'll work. That'll definitely work. And I said, I used it on the last record. I recorded all these big amps, and then I went and did all the leads on a pod. And you said, I may have something better for you. And you were kind enough to send over your Palmer cabinet simulator.
Yeah. Those are cool.
and one of your saturator pedals. And this is a true story. I love this story because you said, set this up, see if it makes any sense, give me a call, and I'll help you out. And so I got it all set up. I think I made sense of everything, and I had a few different amps in the room that I was using. And you said, okay, what amps you got? And I go, well, I've got this Marshall JCM 900. You go, what else you got? I go, I got this Bogner thing. You go, what else you got? I go, I got this Mesa Boogie. You go to the Mesa Boogie. And I went to the Mesa Boogie, and you said, okay, it's going to be about getting your right clean tone, which is something else that I think I've heard you talk about before, which is making sure your fundamental sound is the right sound to add things onto.
Right, yeah.
Because, any kind of direct lining situation can get really squawky. It can start sounding like old Clapton, which is a cool sound, but you may not want that on a particular thing. You maybe want the EQ curve to kind of be a little warmer. And you said, okay, now go to the Palmer Cabinet Simulator, and you're going to go to the filter knob. I think it is. And you said, that's going to be your friend, is what you said. And you were right. It became a really good friend of mine. And it really did work, and those sounds on that record were sparkly, and they had nice harmonic overtones and a lot more content that I had gotten. It was a nice lesson in tone, and it was nice to kind of just hear that there was a lot more richness available in one little guitar sound. And I started thinking a little bit differently about guitar through that, because I had a lot to learn, because I had been a TV writer and a comedian who had been playing guitar for fun. And Metalocalypse made me start taking all that stuff a lot more seriously, and having to figure out how to do a bigger, gigantic live rig, and how to control the beast that is this feedbacking machine, and all kinds of stuff, and stepping on the wrong thing, and my guitar strap falling off, and every foible that could possibly happen happened to me. But it was nice. And then now that I had, I started that show 10 years ago, now I feel like I'm finally starting to understand tone.
Oh,
the
wow.
first time. It's a long journey. And I got lucky a couple of times, but now I feel like I can dial in really nice sounds that I think are record-worthy sounds,
So there's people wondering about the history of how you guys met, and what Crystal Planet is, role that plays in the two of you.
Okay.
Oh.
And stuff.
The first time we met was at the Guitar Player magazine.
That's right. There was a thing called a Guitar Superstar. Superstar. Right. And that was in San Francisco.
That's
and
right.
The guys from Guitar Player magazine had this. This event was a really cool event, because they had, I think I was hosting one. I was the host, so I would introduce the night. And then the panel of judges were you and Steve Vai and maybe Nuno Betancourt or some of the, I did a couple different years.
Yeah, Elliot Easton maybe.
Elliot Easton was probably there. Yeah, he was a great judge. He was the Simon Cowell of the group.
Yes.
And he was awesome, because he's like, I'm coming at guitar from a totally different place. But what would happen is all these different guys from whatever age range had handed in demos, and they were selected to go play in front of this Mount Rushmore of judges that was just like this stone-faced guitar. It was actually, everyone was really warm and really nice, but I would throw up. I would not be good if I played guitar in front of those guys. I would really probably start crying. I'd probably start crying, and it wouldn't be like an emotional guitar moment. It would just be me crying and guitar feeding back on the floor. Anyway, they played amazingly. All of them were really great players, and we talked afterwards, and it was really fun hanging out. Do you remember anything in particular about that?
Yes, I remember. I always take those things very seriously, maybe too seriously, but I, like you, I'm so surprised and impressed by how those contestants get up there in front of us and their competitors and an audience, a live, unruly San Francisco audience,
right,
and pull it together for 4 minutes. And it's a hard thing to do, and they would be, all of them would be great. Some of them would be far better than the others, but
right.
And I always thought that they needed to be congratulated, but at the same time, if I saw,
right,
I don't know, hubris or some, creep in or something, or if they had that attitude like they thought they were all that,
right,
I felt the need to chop it down immediately.
You're a little too cocky. Guess what? You're not very good.
But that was the first time I realized that you were really funny. You were
thank you.
a naturally funny person. You had great command of the English language, which most musicians don't, especially guitar players. We tend to mumble and our sentences don't actually finish.
It's funny. You know what? That goes back to that period that we all kind of go through where I'm shutting the doors. I'm going to learn how to play this thing. Yeah. When you start putting the 12 hours in. And I remember because I ended up going to music school after my journey in Salinas. I went to Berklee College of Music, and I realized I was surrounded by thousands of people who got good at their instruments and didn't get good at being a social person. And I talk about that to musicians all the time, that it's worthy of your time to put yourself in some awkward social situations to learn how to blend in with other people, because that is going to be a part of your career. You're a very verbal person. You're a nice guy. And I think people need to see that there's a reason that you're successful and you keep putting out great stuff. And you have a band that you like playing with, and there's all this nice kind of cross. There's a good general feeling.
Yeah.
And some people realize that they struggle with that because they didn't get good at being verbal.
And they need to practice it.
They do. It really is a skill. Go get a job at retail. Go force yourself to to talk to people. I was doing all that stuff, and I also had this burning inside of my heart that I wanted to start going on stage and doing stand-up, which is just, for a musician, the most terrifying thing in the world. Which is like, okay, I'm gonna eat it. I'm gonna bomb a million times, and I'm gonna have to get better. I have no choice, because the only place you can practice comedy is in a comedy club. You can't go home in a little room and go, all right, let's imagine the conditions are perfect for me to play. I can go. It
wasn't like a King of Comedy where you in your basement growing up you had a little
yeah, I wish.
Tonight Show set up.
Yeah. We'll be right back with Liza Minnelli after this. No, that tends to not work, because you realize that an audience can throw you a million different curveballs and really screw up your stuff. But anyway.
But as I was saying, so that night you were very funny.
Oh, thank you.
And I noticed it was a very big difference from the other guitar players sitting in, the judges, because we obviously didn't have any of these skills that you had. We were just guitar players, and a lot of guitar players come in with the attitude of he's not playing like me, so therefore he's doing pretty much everything wrong.
Right.
So he's not going to win. And then once a contestant shows up that actually plays like them, they're like, hey, he's pretty good,
Right.
And that started to bother me. But each time we came around and you would say something, I thought, well, this guy is funny, and it's but there's heart to it, and it's intelligent, and it's making the whole night fun, it was a gig for us.
Right.
It was still a gig.
Could be a little. I could see how that could get kind of dry and foreboding in some way.
Yeah.
But I realized that as a comedian, I was thinking like a comedian that night, because I thought, these guys got the whole critiquing thing handled. Who cares what I have to say about a guitar, really, But I do notice this guy has a stupid shirt on, and I just want to talk about that for a little while. And no one else is going to do that, I think, if this guy's got puka shells and some kind of
That's right.
whatever.
We're all thinking, well, that Mixolydian wasn't really truly Mixolydian, was it?
Yeah. Well, he had a natural 7. But But I thought, I've got a perfect straight line every single time, and I'm just gonna. By the time it came to me, everyone's started anticipating that I was going to do something ridiculous, and it was really fun to do that. Boy, if a comedian could have that kind of a straight line every single night, it's just like a big softball lob.
That's right.
Knocking it out every time. That's all you want as a comedian is great straight line. So that was the night, and that was fun. And of course, I was a fan of yours for forever. So it was really fun to meet you that night. And we kind of kept crossing paths in that world. And then we kept in touch, and I remember you helped me with guitar stuff, and you gave me some really good advice about even preamps to miking to all kinds of stuff that was really helpful, because I would just ask questions, and you would be nice enough to answer them. And then and I was using Mike Keneally and Brian Beller.
That's right, yeah.
For Dethklok, because I remembered seeing Mike Keneally and Brian Beller play with Dweezil Zappa when I was 19 years old at Berklee College of Music, and they had played the most spectacular show. That whole, with Amit and Dweezil and all those guys. And I was sitting there as a 19-year-old guy with my hands in my pockets going, this is the most fun I've ever seen anyone have on stage. And their musical prowess is paralleled by nobody. Watching Mike Keneally has a countenance of a guy who he looks like he may be about to drop his guitar, and he never misses a note, and he plays the most complicated, amazing stuff with so much style and so much fluidity and so much personality. And I thought, if I were to ever put a band together, and I used to watch Keneally and Beller play together a lot, and I thought, if I were to put a band together, no matter what the style of music is, I think I would want to have these guys making me look good. You know what I mean? And then, so the two of them and Gene Hoglan, who plays in Dethklok, I thought, this is the ultimate band. I don't care if we don't look like heavy metal guys at all. We're going to play the heaviest music that we can possibly try to play, and we don't need to look like the characters of the band. We're basically the pit band. We call ourselves the Metalocalypse Players, jokingly. But yeah, so, and then I remember Keneally saying, I think Joe would like to use this for some stuff. And I was like, that's the coolest gig in the world. Are you kidding me? So now they're part of your band.
Yes, yeah. And, you know, I got into the whole group as a unit really by way of Mike, because I think I was traveling around somewhere. I was at an airport, and I think I called Mike Keneally out of the blue. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't actually played with him since, I think, the first G3 tour. And
right.
When he was playing with Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sort of threw it out like, would you actually show up and just play keyboards for a record? And he went, haven't played keyboards in a while. Sure. You got a keyboard, you know, for me? And I just thought, well, this will be great, because I'm looking for someone who's a complete genius musician, first of all. And then I know we can work out the rest of it. I'd seen him play just about everything Steve could play, because they used to do everything together. You know?
He would have to match Steve Vai. Mike Keneally, just so everyone knows, just to take one step back, he is this amazing guitarist who doesn't even consider himself guitarist. He's like, I'm a keyboard player. And then which makes him a jerk. And he's really nice, and he's got a great sense of humor. He's a perfect guy to travel with. He's just a good guy to, even if you're not on tour, hey, you want to go travel somewhere? He would be great.
He's available, by the way.
He's available.
and he's affordable for a travel companion.
If you don't have to know guitars or keyboards. But he's this amazing guy. He was Frank Zappa's last touring guitar player, and he's got a great story about how he became Frank Zappa's last touring guitar player in his audition. I don't know if you know that story.
I've heard some. I don't know if I know that exact story.
Well, he came to Berklee College of Music while I was there, and he did a demo of this song that he just brought a little tape cassette, and he plugged his guitar into whatever was available. And he said, I'm going to play this demo that I did for Frank Zappa back in the day, so here we go. And he played this song called Night School, which is off an album. What was the album called?
I don't know that one.
Could have been called something. Someone help me out with this. But the song's called Night School, and it's basically maybe like a 4.5 minute long song, maybe even longer, that was just a composed melody that was written on a synclavier, which is programmed, so it's never even played by human hands.
Right,
so we don't even know if it's possible with these intervallic leaps and all these huge things, and it's all over this Jazz from Hell. That's right. So it's all over this big Lydian kind of thing with this cool claps. It's a really fun song, and his musical memory, which is something that Mike has that is unparalleled. He played every single part of this thing. It goes from this register to that register to this, and it's all musical because Frank Zappa wrote it. And it was just outstanding just to watch this feat that was musical, and he made his tone sound good. It doesn't matter what he plugs into, he always sounds great. So that was the first thing that I saw. So that's Mike Keneally, and Mike Keneally is a great artist who writes his own music, and he's a great guy that plays with Steve Vai and now Joe Satriani, and played with me. And I was lucky enough to just try to pick up anything I could from him during the Dethklok time.
And then, so what I learned is that he and Brian go way back. Maybe.
Yes, Brian Beller, bass player. Yeah.
How many years? 20 years? 15 years?
Oh, yeah, probably 20, maybe longer. Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time, but when we were doing the Unstoppable record, I knew that I wasn't going to have the whole rhythm section from the album on tour, and I just threw it out to Mike one day, like, what are we going to do on tour? And he brought up the fact that Marco Miniman on drummer
Right.
and Brian Beller on bass guitar were probably available, but you never know.
Right.
So I just thought, well, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for different rhythm section that have different sensibilities than myself, and it would be great if they all have a history. And then he started telling me, well, they've worked on my solo record, I've worked on their solo record, we worked with Brendon, and so on and so forth. And I started to think, this is great.
And the Aristocrats.
It's friendly, it's fun, and the Aristocrats are crazy, and I was so attracted to the whole thing. And I thought they'd have the right attitude.
Yeah.
They'd understand what the gig was really about. So, and just like that, I mean, they all showed up, and they can play anything.
Oh, it's upsetting how good they are.
But they always improvise, and they like to, and every gig we're laughing and smiling.
Yeah.
So that's the way you should do it.
That's what I thought too. When I even in the first days of Dethklok, I thought, first of all, these guys are going to be easy to hang out with. They're not going to take stuff. They're not going to be brooding musicians scowling. They want to laugh. Brian Beller has got such a great laugh. I love making that guy laugh, and he's such a smart guy. We can sit and talk about anything. And Keneally's the same way. Gene Hoglan's the same way. Very good sense of humor. Super smart. All those guys are just like, if you're going to travel in a tube with a bunch of people, wouldn't this be the best tube to travel in? So I figured that's probably the exact same reason too. On top of them being musical geniuses, they are, and the big plus for me is that they are composers in their own right. Mm-hmm. They're very prolific. Put simply, they write music all the time, mm-hmm. and so when you show them a song, they just kind of know. They have that sensibility, like, Joe's done this part into this part. I can figure out why he would have done that. Mm-hmm. And when they go to add their own 2 cents, it kind of makes sense from a composer's point of view, rather than just like perhaps a player who'd say, I would look better coming off stage if I could play this part over your song. Right. Where a lot of people do that, and they mess up your song because they just think it's an interlude for them to display their talent, instead of thinking of it as a unique song about a particular subject. So that's what they tend to jump into each song and specifically try to get that song to be really interesting, and then they move on. And they don't seem to care whether or not it's a self-promotional event or not. I think that's, to me, the most important part in my limited understanding of this music world that there is that if you're bringing musicians in to play with you, are they playing for the song? Mm-hmm. And are they playing? And ultimately, you kind of turn into just a group of arrangers together. Yeah. How do I get from here to there? And what is the best bridge to get from section A to section B? How do we? What do we anticipate? How do we kind of cut that anticipation in half and surprise? How do we build on the anticipation and make it the thing that you wish it would be? All those little fun things. Gene Hoglan is one of those guys. I don't know if you've gotten to see him really take a stage yet, but he's one of those guys that when he sits in a studio, our conversations are about the song always. It's not about chops. He's like, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, the other thing. He's already got them. Again, it's that story where I think he's already got money, so he doesn't have to worry about it, kind of a thing. He's got the chops, they're there. But let's just talk about the song and why we'll get an emotional feeling out of something. How do you connect emotionally with an audience and ourselves? Another great thing that I notice about music that it doesn't happen in comedy is that even in the smallest demo that you do on your iPhone or whatever, you hear if you've got something pretty early on.
You do.
And you can hear if that's an emotional kind of reaction. And that's what makes music worth listening to a second time. Yeah. But in comedy, you don't know. You got to go up on stage and go, does this make any sense to anybody? And everyone goes, no. And you go, this is embarrassing.
Oh, I can't imagine dying the death of comedy on stage.
Oh, I have died some deaths on stage. Ooh, I have died the kind of deaths on stage where people who are like, I was kind of a fan of your work and I don't want to look you in the eye. No. And I go, that's what happens. That's precisely what happens because I'm trying new stuff out. Yeah, you got to do it. Yeah. Any other questions? So you want to talk about? Let's talk about the Crystal Planet thing.
Oh, Yeah, so for people who don't know, Crystal Planet, it is a noir sci-fi action adventure.
Yeah, that's it.
That's kind of like what it
kind
is.
of a noir sci-fi with some fun humor but a big, cool animated experience that we've been working on for a little while.
Yes. It all started with this art book that I put out, Crazy Drawings, just for fun, and sent one to my friend Ned Evett, crazy fretless guitar player.
Very talented musician, yeah.
Who has lots of other talents in the creative world, and said, "Oh, I love this book. You guys are going on tour. Maybe I could do a little animated short for one of the songs of the tour. You could throw it up on a screen." And I was thinking, well, that's a crazy idea. Pick a song. So I picked Lies and Truths, and he went through the book, I guess, and just based on emotional reaction to some of the drawings, created these characters and a planet, and they're all kind of flying around and chasing after each other. And but once I saw it, something else happened. Like, I saw past just the fact that it was a fun thing to do and nice to have on tour. I just thought, wow, this is like, I'm emotionally connecting with this, just like a kid does, just like I did when I was a young kid and I was watching cartoons. And I think we must have been having the same feeling, because when I spoke to him shortly after having that little short piece up on the stage every night, oh, by the way, you need a new pick. This thing's already etched.
Is it?
Yes, yeah. You're etched there.
Oh, I must have done some major pick sliding with this thing.
You know what you can do with this, by the way? You can just take and you rub it on a carpet.
Oh, rub it on the carpet, yeah.
Like new.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I should throw it away.
Buy a new one.
Recycle it. Excuse me. Recycle it.
Is there a pick recycle?
Right over there.
Yeah. Over there. There it goes.
Thank you.
There it is.
Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so I just thought there's something else. There's something special about this. And I was actually kind of embarrassed in a way to just like say it out loud. Like, this is really cool. What if it were a TV series or a movie or something? And Ned, I think, was thinking the same thing. But since we had no experience in the whole genre or that business or anything, we just didn't know really even how to get to square one intellectually about like, well, what would we do? Like, we have to come up with a story, and
right.
So if I fast forward it, we started working on this idea of a story. I was more of the kind of guy that would contribute these big ideas about a character or location or something, but Ned really started to show his talent for actually writing, like the book or the Bible for the story, and coming up with scripts. So you just fire them off, and so after a while it was like, wow, this is really cool. We're just two guitar players improvising, but we don't have our guitars in our hands for this, so we're just going to riff on this story,
right?
And we have still this total blind faith in this project that this is going to be the biggest, most epic story ever in the world, ever told. But after a while, we realized we needed help.
Right.
And so we enlisted the help
Yes.
of someone who has a lot of experience creating the biggest, most epic stories ever told, of which you have told several. And we got you.
I want that
tricked you.
on paper. The biggest, most epic stories ever told. I want that. I want that in writing.
That's right. And somehow we tricked, without even a contract of any kind, we've tricked you into being part of this project.
Yes.
And we are so close. And it's been so much fun drawing more and writing incidental music for general situations, and trying to represent emotions that I know are going to be on screen. That's the difference. You know, when you write an instrumental and you can say, well, I'm going to be on stage at some point, and I can I can further demonstrate the intent of the song. But when you're recording it, you've got the music and the title, and that's it. You've really got to sell it. But when you think, well, but there's going to be this image, there's going to be a floating skull, and it's going to be devouring millions of strange-looking minions, and a beautiful flying woman is going to come in and destroy it, and whatever. then you go, wow, this is very interesting, because you can scale back on certain things musically, and then you can use all those other things that the guitar kind of doesn't do too well.
Right.
The whole dramatization through sound has been a wonderful experience for me. It's just sort of...
Well, I think you're doing that stuff anyway.
I
think you're. I mean, I think you're a storyteller anyway. Again, through all of your records, going from your most recent album, which is a story album, to everything before that. I feel like I feel like that's it's. I mean, people have been doing these kinds of things way back in the 1700s, or maybe turn the century when they started doing tone poems and things like that, where they were telling the whole story with music, like Berlioz and things like that, where they would tell. Basically, they would chapter it out like a story. This is when he goes to hell, and this is when there are people laughing at him in hell, and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That's part of the story. So you're doing that, combining that with a narrative, with a solid narrative, is a really fun idea. And I think the world would have a really fun time seeing how you and Ned approach that. And I remember, just going back a little bit, you said, "Do you mind taking a look at this clip?" And I looked at the clip, and there was a little guy talking at the bottom, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but whatever it was, and the fact that I didn't know drew me in, and I was intrigued. And he had his own kind of colloquialisms, and it was all invented. And I thought, this is like the tip of an iceberg of a whole idea, and this is really cool. So I would sit and talk to Ned on the phone and talk about, like, what do you see this? What is this? Okay, how do we set this up? How do we make this something that is understandable and creative and totally different? Because all I care about in TV is I only care about a project if I haven't seen anything like it before. That's the only thing I really care about. If this is something that's on right now, then I'm really not interested. But this didn't look like, which also makes it a little bit more intriguing and a little bit more difficult to do, because you haven't seen, there isn't a template set up to make this work. But the truth is, there's old storytelling stuff that we can definitely put in. There's Joseph Campbell. There are all these things that really do apply to this whole world. But the fun part about this is, putting pen to paper and asking almost like a comedian does. Does this make any sense? Does this work? Does that work? It's not all music. You have to track a narrative. You have to make sure things are landing. Make sure we care. Make sure all these, the characters are resonating.
Yes,
make sure that.
Focusing on what I remember what you had said early on, which is you've really got to stay focused on what the story is about, and you think you know what it is until somebody asks you that question and asks you to express it in a sentence or two, and then you go, oh.
Well, you may
I know what it's about, but how would I express that?
It's hard to articulate it sometimes. You know it in the back of your head, but you haven't. And this happens all the time. Through Metalocalypse, I know that I wanted to make it as simple as possible, but keep adding in these kind of more dreamlike elements throughout the show that would eventually culminate towards the, what would end up being the finish, or the lack of finish, or the maybe finish.
The finish. Go sign the petition.
But yeah, no, it's all something that's hopefully a combination of music and evocative visuals, and something that we can sink our teeth into as just regular people, even if we don't know anything about guitar, even if we don't know anything about the world of inside music or science fiction or any of that stuff. What does this have to do with us being alive on Earth right now? It's a big question I always ask, which is fun, and that's why the project is super fun to have gotten this far and to keep on developing and all that stuff. But I think it's gonna turn out really cool.
I can't wait to see it happen. One of the joys I still get working on is when Ned comes up with another new sort of edit on the pilot,
right? And
he brings in more of his voices. His character voices are amazing.
Yeah,
he does. It's almost like a guy who's got like 100 unique guitar tones in his pocket. You know what I mean? And he pulls them out for these characters, and they help tell the story because they convey some special set of human emotions. It's almost like it's telegraphing something that maybe you don't really see if you read the script. And I love that. Maybe it's because being a musician, I'm listening to it as well, very carefully. And if it sounds a certain way, it's extra evocative to me,
So some of the fans, just want to let them know that some people are saying they're having some audio dropped for them, and so you can just let them know that nothing has changed here, so it might be
okay.
and
Nothing has changed with me. I've been sitting here with my hands sitting on my hands just so I don't break anything.
Yeah, we're not sending out any compromised audio, so just check your connection.
And we'll upload an archive of it afterwards.
Yes, we'll upload an archive of this whole thing. So
you just said that. You're just repeating everything you said.
I know, but I'm saying it louder, so it seems like I said it the first time. It's a classic trick.
And in general, people are asking for some more interaction with them. So
Okay, yeah.
Some questions
We can talk to each other forever. We can do this by ourselves, but yes, you guys are here, so let's talk to you guys.
Yeah, come on over.
Yeah, come on over. Yeah.
I don't know how come no one came over.
I don't know why. Where are they? Yeah, what are some?
Well, I think one person was asking, like, the talk about Crystal Planet. When might people actually see it?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
That is a great question. Basically, in the process right now, we're what we want to do is when I go out and pitch a new show, what I ask of the show is to make sure we've got our absolute best foot forward, and we've experimented with a lot of stuff. And right now, we wrote some stuff that we like a lot. We've gotten it to a place that's interesting, that we can still change and manipulate and go the other way with, do whatever we want. But right now, we're just kind of taking it out to some people and getting some consensuses before we consensi.
Consensi.
Is that right?
Don't try that at home.
Yeah.
You'll need a trained professional to consensi.
I think I made that one up. I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
But we're in the early stages. I think it's there's so many people out there that want to do cool, fun animation. This is the kind of project that I think would appeal to them. So many different like SVODs and weblets out there that want to do stuff, and networks and stuff.
I don't even know what he's talking about.
Neither do I. I'm making up words.
Consensai, webfence. What did you say?
Weblets. Weblets. I heard somebody use that one time, and I like to use it because people think I know what I'm talking about. But when people ask me, when you put me on the spot, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Helmet D wants to know if there's going to be a live show from Crystal Planet that would hit the road.
Yeah, of course.
I think that would be a perfect way to. If I'm a network and I hear that Joe Satriani has got a really cool animated project and we're working together in something, and then you find out that he's doing all the music, and then you find out that like, oh, you could probably take this whole thing on the road and make it an exciting thing. I would say buy that show and this is how you advertise it, you know. So I think that would make perfect sense.
Right, and we would, and we have weblets.
Yeah, we've got a whole plate of weblets. They're nearly finished being microwaved.
Come on over.
Yeah, barbecued weblets. Yeah.
Nosh on the weblets.
Let's get some more questions out here.
Joshua Olmstead says, ever done a completely improvised set?
Me?
I think both of you. Each of you can answer
jeez,
that
yeah.
We're doing that right now.
Yeah, this is it.
Besides...
And I think we can both agree it's not going well.
That's why we're archiving it.
So we can edit it. Yeah.
The closest thing to that would have been in late '86. I went to Scandinavia and played with Jonas Hellborg, Swedish bass player, Danny Gottlieb on drums, a woman named Anita Heckborg singing vocals. She had the hardest job. Can you imagine improvising a set? You know.
Yeah. It's like improvising. I can understand improvising sounds like squee squaddly bee bee da doo, like those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But improvising a meaningful content would be really difficult to do. But people must be able to do it, right? If you've done it before, let us know.
But there's always a context, you know. It's like I always look at it like this: like if you go to do a blues gig, there are so many things that you have to do that are going to be a repetition of what every other blues artist has ever done. But the audience wants you to do that. That's part of what sets the whole thing up.
Absolutely.
Right? And then there's a spot where you have to be amazing. And they're very discerning once you fill that spot. But the rest of it is kind of a setup. So
that's a good point.
With the improvised gig, there is a kind of a setup. It may just look foreign if you've never done it before, but that's what I noticed is that there's still convention, there's still people repeating things that they've learned before. It's not really true improvising like Lenny Tristano pioneered back in the late 40s, early 50s. that stuff just sounds like notes with no style. That's what that is.
Right.
These days, everyone is still tipping their hat, to convention of some kind, saying, like, see how I do this? That's because I listened to him, so I'm cool. You noticed it, so you're cool.
Yeah.
We're all cool.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing tonight.
Well, it's also a communication an immediate communication in a room sometimes, and I've seen that happen at the Baked Potato, particularly with Mike Keneally and Brian Beller and Joe Travers and that kind of group of people. When they just decide to, some of them goes, what is it? We're in A? Okay, we're in A. What's going to happen? I don't know. Let's start listening to each other. And then a thing that's kind of magical that cannot be duplicated anywhere else at any other time happens at that moment. And that's when and then I'm watching the band kind of folds in and just pays attention to each other. They're just kind of like looming around each other going, you're doing that? Okay, I'm going to do this. And they're questioning and answering. And then someone says, I'm taking it completely in a different direction. And then this whole journey happens. And they have this through composed, never existed before that moment piece. And those are the things that really, and I've gotten to be on stage and kind of witness that stuff and try not to screw it up and try not to step on toes with those guys before. And that, to me, is total excitement that I don't think you can get in a lot of places these days.
Oh,
it's
that's a
really
great
fun,
question, though. What was the guy's name? Josh?
That was Josh. Yeah.
Josh, yeah, that was a great question,
That
actually.
sounds like a Josh question to me.
Here's another one.
Well, free weblets for Josh.
Yeah, give him a
Well,
wrap up some
those are being downloaded to his computer right now.
Right now.
Okay, good.
Wes O'Neill says, any word of advice for his students at DBS Music in Bristol?
Well, first thing, you want to get out of Bristol. No, I love Bristol.
Love Bristol.
That's a.
You'll be appearing at the comedy.
I'll be
joint.
I'll be at the Comedy Weblet in Bristol, and I've got things that I say to people all the time. I'm sure you've got things that you say.
Say something to me, because I'm in need of something right now.
Really, you need some.
I need some advice.
I think, I try to say the same thing, which is that work on being a person as much as you are working on being a musician. I think that really will serve you in the long term of your entire musical career, because I think it's really important to interact with people, and it's really important to know how to be a business person on top of that. You have to be smart about that stuff. You have to kind of create, basically I ask myself, I ask people and myself, be the kind of person you wish that you could work with, which is someone who doesn't take stuff too heavy, who takes things lightly, who's able to make fun of themselves, who's able to show up and be very professional, who's able to isolate a problem and correct it without any kind of, again, drama or emotional damage. I think there's a nice way to do everything in a professional world, and there's a way to kind of, it's really funny, and then to be able to solve problems intellectually without any emotion getting into it. That's a really important thing, because we all have egos, and it's your life is going to be better once you start kind of ignoring it, I think. So I think about that stuff. The technical stuff, if you can get up and play, you're in a good place. If you can get out in front of people, and this is the same thing with comedy and with music, if you start getting out in front of people, your entire life is going to change for the better. Because you're going to have some demarcation points to totally understand. And the other part of that I say is be self-critical. Record yourself. Listen to yourself. Be honest with yourself. Could I do better than that? Where's my rhythm falling? Am I rushing everything? Turns out I do all the time. So I've got to correct that stuff all the time. And be self-critical as an entire person, not just a musician. How did I come across there? Was I a jerk? Did I make people feel weird for being around me? Things like that. Those are just big overarching things that I think about, because I've been the person who's kind of socially awkward. It takes a long time to come out of your shell, to be a person out in the open. And it's worth it. You got to practice it just like guitar.
Yes, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I used to tell all my students to take whatever gig they could get, and whether it was, the wedding gig, the club gig, the playing for kindergarten, old folks home, private party. Don't say no if someone gives you stadium gig. Maybe even do it for
point.
free.
That's a good point.
But you have to learn, like a comedian, you got to learn to work the room, and every room's different. Every room is specific, and you need experience.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed early on when I was a young kid and started performing was that I'd finish the night and I'd say, to myself, how come I didn't show everybody how good I was? It's like, what stopped me from just doing all that stuff I just practiced for the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's a good point. It happens all the time, yeah.
So the social thing, that's what it is.
Yeah.
People are looking at you, and all of a sudden you're rushing, you're nervous, or
you're whispering instead of shouting,
All
with your guitar.
Yeah.
Those are all great points.
So you just have to get out there and do it. Just jump out on stage and see what happens, and get used to it. Just get used to being natural in front of people. Like right now, I'm forgetting to look at the camera. I'm looking at like those weird speakers behind the camera.
Right.
And I should be looking at you. Oh, that one.
That's the main camera.
I'm not
there.
even looking at that one.
I'm looking at both of these cameras.
What have I been looking at this whole afternoon? I don't know.
I have one other small piece of advice that I think totally pertains to the both of us sitting right here. And this is what I said. I did a little commencement speech for Musicians Institute this past winter, and this is something that kind of made the room go quiet. I said, look, I am one of you guys. I know exactly what it's like to be in your shoes. I know what it's like what am I going to do now? Here's the truth, and I think this is true unless we're really lucky. No one is going to give us jobs. And then all the parents started throwing up in their mouths because they just paid all this tuition. I said, no, it's not bad. The truth is that don't wait for someone to give you a job in music or in comedy or as a writer or whatever it is. Start doing it like it is your job, and do it today. Start doing it now, because I think you're a perfect example of no one told you to become an instrumental guitar player and write these amazing pieces of music. You decided that this is something that you needed to do. It all made sense. You luckily put a great team of people together and made the records that would change the way guitar is played and the way people listen to music and stuff like that. No one told anybody to do any of that stuff. No one gave you that job. You made it up as you went along. And did you know what you were doing at the time? You were probably going, I don't know, right? Exactly. And that's how that feels. You're probably going, this is fun, this is cool, I don't know what's going to come of this, but I know that I'm doing something today, and I'm doing the most important thing, which is making music. That's the whole thing. All the chops, all the cool things, all the scales. If you've got a piece of music that's emotional, that's the bottom, and you will have that forever, even if no one ever hears it. You've got an example of your stuff. But create your own job for yourself, I think, is an important thing.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Don't wait for anyone, because we're all guitar players, most of us, I would imagine. And I would say I would never make this be the thing to stop people from playing guitar, but who needs another one of us, right? But we do. We know it's an important part. By the way, guitar, the other part of guitar that I think about that's so important, if I'm talking to students that are listening, is that if you can get past a guitar, I think you can get past everything. Because it's a great set of problems in front of your face, very close to you, that it's just you and this problem. And the truth is that it's you versus you. There's a really good reason something doesn't sound right, and you're the only person stopping that from happening is you. So concentrating, working in the millimeters, but also realizing that you can conquer this thing by yourself. And if you can do that, you can be a social person. You can go ask a girl out on a date, or a guy out on a date, or you can go do whatever you want. To me, learning guitar helped me understand writing comedy. I had a practicing methodology that I could apply to comedy. Sitting at an edit bay, working on a TV show, I can use the same exact methodology on that. Getting behind a camera, directing a short film or a video, or doing whatever. It's the exact same stuff. It's this. I'm just learning how to work the tiniest little different tools. They're not so much frets in this case. They're buttons, or they're something else. But to me, it's all the exact same thing. So if you can do this, you're gonna be able to apply that to anything you want to do.
All right. There's a question that
there should be applause there, right?
No,
the studio audience.
Please remain seated. Please. I'm just a regular person. Go on. Yeah.
I've ignored the questions for a while, but finally have to pass along. A lot of people want to know about the Chickenfoot song. So what do you have to say about that, Joe?
The Chickenfoot song.
The new Chickenfoot.
Oh, the new Chickenfoot song. Yeah. Oh.
The dance craze, the Chickenfoot.
The Chickenfoot.
Yeah.
Brendon will be demonstrating that during the commercial break.
I have to go do a costume change, but yeah, I'll be back.
Only the people in the studio audience will get to see it. Well, every time I open my mouth about Chickenfoot, the rest of the guys call me up and say, "Hey, shut up! You're not supposed to tell anybody." So I'm sort of put on the spot. But I can tell you that usually what I'm doing is I get excited about what Chickenfoot could be doing, and I write a song and I make a little demo and I send it off to Sam and Chad and Mike, and then I wait to see if it, they nibble on it. And so a little while back, Sam got really excited about this one very slinky riff, and he came up with a cool set of lyrics immediately, and within about a day had finished the vocals and was very excited. So then he got Mike to play bass on it, and then sent the tape out to Chad wherever he was. He put some drums on it. Came back to me. I put a solo on it, and it's kind of ready to be mixed, I think. But that could take another year, so I don't know what else to tell you about that. But things are happening.
I would have to imagine, and this is something we talked about earlier, but having a super group, for lack of a better word, but a good word, for people who all have a huge foot in a lot of their own pots, or their foot in the thing.
Well, this is a related question that goes right in that from S. Fuller 94. It says, "Are you more creative alone or in a group?"
If I was going to answer that question, I'd say I can't. I've never been able to figure that out. It's always different. What about you?
I love having. It's my job in what I've done so far, be it Dethklok or Metalocalypse or home movies, whatever it is. My job that I appoint myself in, either producer or whatever it is to show up with an idea and to try to have that idea fleshed out. And what I ask of everyone that's around me is to take this idea and beat it, or with something cooler. To take this arrangement, how do you make it even better? How do you surpass an expectation? How do you pull the rug out from one section, and how do you make something surprising and cool? So my whole thing is, it's my job. Again, I got to come up with a job, like I said earlier today, or I don't get to do anything. No one's going to hire me. I have to come up with a job. So I ask everyone around me, who are great, funny, smart, creative people, to beat my ideas with something cooler, and I love it more than anything when they do. It makes me really excited. Because one guy's point of view can be a little, repetitive after a while. You want to keep covering your tracks and make people guessing.
Let people in. Collaboration.
Yeah. It's really fun. There's nothing more boring. I mean, I love being in a studio, working out. I've been in a studio for the last 2 months writing a record. And it's exciting, and it's also just belabored hours of going, not this. Okay, let me get some perspective. Okay, let me come back. But when I'm in the studio, once I get into the actual real studio recording stuff, I love having people around me, so I can bounce ideas off and go, does this make any sense to you? Am I the only one here hearing this? So it's good to have people. We're social people, It's like when you leave a dog in a house, they trash the place. Speaking of that, my dog's in my house trashing the place.
That's right.
Well, maybe we'll take a few more questions and make sure it's not too trashed.
Yeah, we will. That's all right.
Andy Jennings 90 wants to know, Brendon, what are your favorite Joe songs?
It's hard to pick. I mean, the first album I used to listen to on a loop, like in a tape, like an auto reverse tape loop, and I think I was telling you this, I would want to go to sleep to it and dream to it, because I thought it was such cool music. So everything off that record, of course, I love Flying in a Blue Dream. It's hard to beat the song Flying in a Blue Dream. I loved Back to the Light off that. Was that
Into the Light?
Into the Light.
Yeah.
Into the Light was a song I thought was one of the most beautiful melodies, and so again, there's an emotion that comes out of that. I loved. There's so many things off Time Machine that are so cool. I mean, there's stuff on every record that is in my head. I really loved. I loved when you put out Dr. Satriani. What's the album called?
Satchafunculus, yeah.
Satchafunculus. That record has so much cool stuff on it too, and I love your guitar tone on that. And you were switching things up in a really cool way, and
that was very different.
It was really different, but I really love the tones you got off that, and I love it because it has its own kind of sculptural, its own kind of musical landscape, and I love the spongy sound of your guitar on that record. I love the song Revelation.
Oh, cool.
Which is just really, really cool. It's one of my favorites, and of course all the recent stuff. I just go into the Satriani world and just listen to everything, you know. So those are really important favorite things. I think Mystical Potato Head Groove thing. Is that the one with
the arpeggios? Yeah.
That one to me, I couldn't understand how those notes were happening. I remember hearing, going, this doesn't make any sense. I don't hear it. Then I saw you doing it live, and I was like, oh, but still, I can't. How do you hammer that stuff on? Those are big intervallic things. That's hard to do. You got to get
really
the wrist
hard.
Action in.
Yeah, it's hard for me.
Still can't do it. Yeah,
you can't do it. I've seen other people just do that so well. It gets me so mad.
That's such a great sound, and just all those sound. Every record, the guitar has such a personality. It's not just and it's never just a note or a thing. It's just it's an attack and a vibe and all kinds of stuff, and bar and the left hand. But you know.
Well, Joe, what about Brendon's work? The animated stuff, or Dethklok Live, or?
Yeah, you know, I think the last record you put out, I was on a Chickenfoot tour, wasn't I?
Yeah.
When
I put out a couple. I put out a rock opera with a 50-piece orchestra.
Right.
And then before that, I put a Dethklok album out, and then right around the same time, I put out a solo album.
That's a solo record.
Called Galacticon.
Yeah, the Galacticon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't there a song called Danger Tits on that?
There's a song called Danger Tits on that.
I love that song.
Oh, cool. Well, that was like a tribute to all my favorite guitar guys, you included, where I was thinking, like, every little section, I thought, this is kind of there's a little Steve Morrissey run here, and there's a little Jeff Becky. In my mind, it may not come out that way at all, but in my mind, I think there's a little Steve
Maybe that's why that really got to me. Yeah. I remember. And, you know, when you're on tour, you're listening to records, you get into different things for funny reasons. Maybe it's because you're just so into guitar every night.
Right.
And but very often the way records stick with me is that if I have like a moment in life where the music and where I am fits, and I can't remember the city, but I was staying in this ridiculous hotel room that was huge. I mean, it was the size of 4 or 5 rooms, but there was nothing in it.
Right.
So there was a conference table and a hardwood floor, and it was huge. And the owners of the hotel just thought I could use it. Maybe they thought I was bringing amps or I was going to have a huge party.
Right.
So I remember getting that record and just being on the floor, and everything. Since there were no chairs or anything, it was just a table in the room, and the bedroom was off to the side. But I remember setting the laptop on the floor and working out. There were these huge windows over the city. Where was it? Maybe it was, I can't remember. It'll come to me in a minute. But I just remember getting that record, and when that song came on, for some reason, it connected with exactly, maybe because my fingertips were swelling from the gig the night before or something, but I related to that. And maybe it was because I was hearing all these... this sort of homage to different guitar playing, but you kind of really nailed it.
Oh,
and
cool, man.
I think that the clip at which the style of the music on that album, you know, comes in. There's a lot of intensity.
There is, yeah.
And so the competition for the guitar to just stand out, I think it's really rough. It's very different from, let's say, Flying in the Blue Dream. You know, it's a mid-tempo. There's only acoustic guitars left and right. You can't help but hear the guitar.
Right.
So you can be very subtle. People are still going to hear it. But on that record, there's a lot of aggression from the band. So I know what it's like.
How do you find a pocket inside of that? Yeah.
That's right. And then it's got to shine. You know? But
yeah. That was a fun record to make. It was just something I did in between. And there's a lot of vocal stuff on that that's actual with notes, as opposed to doing my Louis Armstrong impression in Dethklok. So that's a fun experimental thing, and a little bit more melodic. There are actual major chords that are happening there, but there's a lot of Brian May in there. There's like a whole combination of like Weezer and Queen and
great
Soundgarden and things like that. And
we saw the Brian May amp as we were coming in. I got the
Brian May amp. I'm a big Brian May fan.
Did you use the Brian May amp on that?
I did use that for a song called Beast Blade. They all have it's like a big audio comic book. Is the way I kind of thought of that record, and I consider it a high stakes intergalactic rock album.
I like
That's what I thought. That I was trying to coin a new phrase because I think it made sense because everything's like immediate and like, oh, where are we going? We're going off on a trip or something. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
High stakes.
Right,
High stakes.
Intergalactic.
Yeah.
You want another question?
Sure.
Malcolm says, Brendon, how do you incorporate comedy with the style of music you play so well? And I'm going to add on to that. And then Joe, what sort of commentary do you have about your music and the Crystal Planet and how that's coming together?
Well, when I do, I'll tell you, in Metalocalypse and Dethklok, basically, when I was going to put the very first Dethklok record out, I thought, okay, I've got people I somehow talked into paying for this album. I don't know how that happened. But this is my only chance to make a record, and I want to make it, and I don't want to just make it a comedy album. I want to think, like, from the band's point of view. And the band and the show, I think, would take it as seriously as possible. And so, therefore, I think I should take it as serious. And even if I'm doing something that's somewhat, crossing through comedy, I want to take it as straight as possible. I don't want to, like, wink and go, hey, we're all joking here. I want you to not know if I'm joking or not. And that was the most important thing. And my favorite compliment is when people are so confused they don't know whether or not to take it as comedy or not. And I think, yes! But hopefully it's worth listening to. I mean, basically, when we're writing music, my question I'm asking myself is this worth listening to ever? Is there anything in this that makes this any kind of a fun journey at all that's worth not only listening to, but hopefully by the second you get finished with a song, I want you to want to hear it again. And I want you to get sick of this album. That's what I want, hopefully. Yeah.
Context is so important. And, if you think about recorded music, you go back over 100 years and you think, well, what were the contexts for music?
Right.
It was social situations, people get together. You had to have a musician around. Someone had to play in order for there to be music. Mm-hmm. But once recorded music sort of was invented, that changed entirely. Think about that. For the first time in the history of the human race, music could be heard without there being musicians around.
Right.
Without there having to be any interaction with the person or the people making the music. So this is brand new human stuff going on. And then you keep moving forward and you go, well, that means there's perfect music for walking the dog, for eating a bowl of ice cream, for making love, for being in an argument, for going to the gym, for driving fast, driving slow, for wearing tight clothes, for wearing loose clothes. I mean, it's endless, really, the context. And why shouldn't there be music that's more appropriate than others for all of those things? That's exciting, but it's also very sort of daunting and confusing for a musician when they walk into their studio and they go, I think I'll write a song today. About what? For what?
Yeah.
Those are the big questions.
Oh, your brain will explode. We need limitations, which I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm sure the show is fantastic for that, because when you have these characters, for the band, you've got Dethklok, and you can write for them, and you know what they're not going to play.
Right.
You know what they're not going to write songs about, unless you use that as a device to create comedy, I suppose.
Well, the fun part, speaking of limitations, almost in like a Lars von Trier Dogma 95 kind of idea. These guys know, the camera guys know what I'm talking about. But I try to impose my own thing with Metalocalypse, where I think, okay, I tune down to C standard, so I'm going to probably be playing the heaviest string, so most of my songs are going to be in the key of C, and I think that one,
This is C?
That's got to be either C or B for that.
I just scratched it again.
It's all right. We'll just send you a whole bill at the end of the thing.
I'm putting it right up here so you can see. Yeah. I did it again. Here you go.
That's pretty low. I'm not sure if that's a C. This one's lower. So you know what happens is they get tighter. Lower strings actually tune up when you leave them alone. Yeah. But as you probably know, I remember I'm pretty much going to be in C. I'm probably going to have some kind of a keyboard thing. I like using strings and blending that with guitar, and I'm going to have some double kicks. So that's my sonic landscape. Then I have to have some kind of a fast solo, because I was stupid enough to make this guy have to play really fast all the time. And I was like, I'm just out of things. I don't know how I'm going to keep this up. I should have made him a blues guitar player. What was I thinking? But I should have given him like one finger and a slide. That's it. That would have been cool. Now I want to go back and change everything. I want to pull a George Lucas and change everything. But yeah. So those limitations actually helped me write music. And I just thought, what was the tempo of my last song? It was fast. Okay, the next one's going to be either moderate or slow. Okay, what was the last one? Is this? Okay, and the next thing's got to contradict it. And I've got to have something that's hopefully, just like some writing chops, a bag of tricks. Like, okay, this section's got to contradict the other section. This one was slow. That one's double time. Okay, that's cool. How do I make this just... How do I get to the place where my head starts bobbing, with the music? And sometimes that's a contradiction. A tempo dot 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 dot, going from like just going from those two half time to double time will make our heads bob. Something happens as just if you're a baby or a grown person, your head starts bobbing at some point. And I thought, okay, that's something I keep on hooking into. So have contradictions, have these little limitations, and then I can finally I can write music. If I sit here with all these different guitars, I'll usually just pick one. Go, this is my guitar. I'm gonna hopefully I can get a lot of sounds out of this, because if I start A-Bing everything, again, all these options will make our brains explode. Go and try to buy some potato chips. Your brain will explode. There are fire hot Doritos. There are sun chips. There are different things. You don't know which one to get. There are too many options. We got to limit all the options down to one thing, and then we can start being creative. I think
that's right.
It's one little tiny thing. Lars von Trier, Dogma 95. Look it up if you want to. It's the same kind of thing. Imposing limitations in filmmaking.
So, Joe, for Crystal Planet, is it going to be new material, or is it going to be any clips of existing or catalog material? What do you know?
Yeah, what exists now is a catalog of about 300 cues, from as short as, strange little noises to represent strange little things that happen on a planet in the future, all the way to songs that are traditional length, 3.5, 4.5 minutes, and everything in between. And some of them are represented by a band, like what you would normally call a rock band: guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, guitar, that kind of stuff. And others are deconstructed into some stranger instrumentation to represent the environments that I've been writing for. But because the writing took an unusual turn, because we were creating the series as we went along, Ned and I would have a discussion about, let's say, maybe this character has a history with a loved one that had a health problem, and that person died, but before then there was some very important information given, and that would spark something inside of me, a memory, and then some creativity, making something up, and then I'd go to a keyboard and create a pulse with a synthesizer, and I'd write 2 minutes of something that was evocative for just a little scene that I wasn't even sure how long it was going to be, because Ned hadn't really written the script. He just came up with the idea for that moment in the characters' lives. So because of that, we've got all this music, and then once we started working with Brendon, I think that's when actually Flying in a Blue Dream sort of wound up in one of our pilot edits.
Right.
And I just thought, well, that sounds really perfect right there. But
yeah.
I was almost thinking, like, do we want to do that? So
we don't have to do. Yeah. I think what we were doing the day of was just placeholder, and I thought this is just such a great dreamlike. It's the perfect title for that song, and it's so great because it feels like you're just flying in a blue dream. And I thought for the intro and how we're setting up this character, and we're hearing how he thinks and how he feels, I would love to hear him speak over this thing. So I thought it doesn't have to be that, but right now what we'll do in Metalocalypse is I'll grab placeholder, or we'll grab a funk tune that I have to write a song that has to sound like later on. Or I grabbed a Steely Dan tune at one point, and I was like, I'm gonna keep this tempo, and I'm gonna match it, and then I'm gonna write different chords. I'm gonna make it sound different. I'm gonna hopefully not cover all my tracks and make it not feel like a ripoff. The cool thing about hearing what Joe was doing, he had his laptop out, and we were doing this really fun experiment in front of an edit bay. It was a really fun, creative day. And it was really cool to hear some of this music that sounded really dark. It almost sounded like music that would be from True Detective or something, season 1, and no, season 2. And it was really cool. It's really electronic kind of stuff, and I could hear your fingerprints in there, which was really cool. And but it was a group of really cool incidental cues, you know, not just not to be featured sometimes, to kind of help cultivate an atmosphere.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So it was really neat to hear all that stuff, and I love because usually I have to generate all that stuff, and it was so nice to have you with your flash drive going, oh, how about this and that and the other thing, and putting in the edit bay and going, look, this music's already done. It feels so cool already, and it definitely, the slightest change in any kind of music in a narrative colors the piece in so many different ways. I mean, go home and, you know, watch The Godfather with yakety sax on it. You're going to notice, everyone's like, yeah, it changes the thing, and it really changes everything.
I think I'm gonna do that with There Will Be Blood. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, do that too. That'd be really cool. Do like the Macarena.
All right, here we're gonna do something different here.
Yeah.
One-word answers to these questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we're talking too much. I get it.
I get it. Yes. Okay.
Joe.
Yes.
Will you ever make an album with Steve Vai?
Yes.
Any plans for an acoustic album? Both of you. Each of you.
Yes.
Yes.
Why say no?
Do you guys ever keep a practice journal?
No.
No.
Well, I'm going to go through. This is Underbar Chris, AKS DMF, Joshua Olmsted, Helmut D. Will Music by the Squares ever be released?
I hope so.
That's not a one-word answer.
3 words. Yes.
You're being forced into doing a lot of things you had no idea you were going to do. Yeah.
Would you put one ukulele cover on an album?
Can everybody hear your voice when we do this? Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, good. Ukulele on an album. I'm going to say no.
I will no.
I think ukulele needs to have a resurgence in a different time. I think we've had the ukulele time, and I think it's time for another instrument to move on.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. Again, one word. What is the best image to put on a guitar of yours? Not for sale or anything, but just for yourself. Digging deep.
I know.
One word answer, huh?
Yeah.
Phrase. The phrase is okay.
Danger tits.
I was going to say Chickenfoot.
I like to see one guitar with both of those.
Yeah. I don't know what Danger Tits looks like. It's a title that I had no idea. That was Danger Tits, by the way. The title was, I just said, like, basically I'll write something and just like, fuck off. Basically, get out of here. I don't want to even worry about titling you right now, and that's what I put there.
Is that hyphenated? It's okay, right? Is that hyphenated?
I don't. I think I may have made it one word. Whenever I can make something one word, like Thunder Horse or whatever, anything like that, I will. But yeah, okay. More one word answers.
Any chance for a G3 tour with Brendon on it?
Well, that's a lot. It's legal issues with his people.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get my lawyer here if you really want him to answer that question.
I bet that we would know more about that if we could just get into his practice journal. There's probably lots of stuff that
I think I would make the cut after, like, if it got to like G23. Like, we need a 23rd guitarist. Get Brendon, he's available.
The answer is yes.
All right. I mean, we've been going for an hour and 40 minutes here. So,
does anybody have any final questions?
Yes. Yes. No wonder.
No?
Ever heard of a practice glove artificial calluses?
Whoa.
Oh, man.
Best thing I ever heard of from a fan on tour was somebody asked Stu Hamm if he sliced the calluses off his feet and glued them on his fingers. Which,
hire that guy.
you know
who I think the callus conversation is when you first start out with guitar playing. I don't think it comes up later on. I don't know if you consider your calluses that often.
I have to continually consider them.
Okay.
I am not allowed to go swimming while on tour because it would take away my calluses. They just seem to peel away very easily.
Okay, very good.
I don't do any of that.
I don't think about them ever, but then again, I don't play as much guitar as you. I have to go up on stage and do stand-up and stuff like that, so I have to...
You get it like a little callus, like, holding the mic?
No, I have a contraption that I just set the mic in with a bunch of wire hangers around my neck so I can gesticulate better. Hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
Hey, that's good.
That's pretty good, right?
Hands, move your hands. Yeah. Hello.
How are
this
you
has
doing?
been such a good afternoon chat live social thing with Brendon
and Joe. Well, thank you guys for taking an interest in our lives.
Yeah.
Both professional and personal. And keep your eyes open for something very cool from Crystal Planet in the future.
Yeah.
How far in the future?
Very soon.
Yes or no questions only, please.
Just, dial that 1-800 number you see below me on the screen. It might be just below your viewing angle there, but it's actually there. I can see it, but can they see it?
I would think, and this is something we kind of kept quiet because we've just been working on it. This is the first time we're really talking about this thing out in the open.
That's right.
But I would love to see just the gauge of interest in people seeing an animated show that comes from Joe and Ned that I would shepherd and help with and all that stuff. I think I would imagine that your audience would love to see something like that and want to see what the inside of your mind looks like on a TV screen or a movie screen, whatever it is.
If I'm wrong, are you requesting a trending tag of Crystal Planet hashtag?
I may be asking for a trending Crystal Planet hashtag Crystal Planet, just to see what people are thinking. How would you like to see this thing? I'd be interested to see what the people think.
All right.
Yeah.
And you want to send us out on a musical note?
All right. How about E flat?
I just put another scratch in here right away.
I'll put this here. I'll pull this thing out. And let's play some of the worst guitar we've ever played. I've got a 7-string.
Yes. This is something that I just found in Brendon's practice journal.
I'm always trying to get that F power chord together. Thank you guys for watching. Please donate to your local PetSmart. Thank you.
All right. Oh,
PetSmart.
And we wanted to do a final shout out to the Sonoma Wireworks. Joe over there actually helped us out with the Studio Jack Mini, which makes it so that instead of having the crappy audio on the phone, we actually have a decent audio.
Wow. Well, they did a good job.
Well, thank you. What are they called again?
It's Sonoma Wireworks.
Sonoma Wireworks. Thanks to the wires.
They work.
If you can hear this, it's because of Sonoma Wireworks.
Yeah.
That'll do. Bye.
Bye, folks. We love you.